to disorganize people's destinies. But among the things that my grandmother did is something that I shared in the previous documentary 16. I shared that my grandmother, she used to wake up at around 4 in the morning, and then she would go to that hill where she would meet a snake. In that snake, they would sacrifice chicken and feed it. The snake had 4 heads, so they would sacrifice chicken. My grandmother, when I said they, my grandmother and my auntie who died also. So they would sacrifice the chicken, they would offer the egg and the wine to the snake. So that snake would eat that chicken and all that, and after they perform ritual. Now, during the time that the sun is coming out, that is now when my grandmother would get a list of people that she's bewitching. And then she starts making declarations, calling their names and making declarations. Among the words I heard her say is that, let the sun feed on your sweat. And that is the most terrible thing I have ever seen my grandmother do. Because just imagine someone goes to the field to work, and they are carrying their family in their mind, and they are working so hard so that they can make ends meet. They can provide for their family. They can, their children are, maybe they need to go to hospital, they need to go to school. He needs to bring food on table, and he cannot, but he's not failing to provide because he's lazy, but because somebody has programmed the sun rays or the god of the sun to send evil spells against that person in everything that they do. And no matter how intelligent and how hardworking they are, that nothing that they would do that would materialize into anything. So people would be laboring, and you would see, like in life we have seasons. There is seasons when we gather, when everything is just working smoothly, and then there are seasons when you are surviving on what you gathered. So now, if you cannot gather during the time that you're supposed to gather, then it means when you're supposed to survive on what you gathered, still there is nothing to survive on. So your life is going from bad to worse. And not that you are not educated, not that you're not hardworking, but because there is an evil witch that is sending spells to work against you, sending the sun rays to just collect your sweat or your blood. A person is working and working, but there's nothing to show for their labor. In the same place the person is working, there are other people who are working there, and they are driving, they are building, they are making progress, but no matter the attempt a person puts in, nothing is coming out. And then also, she used to also use witchcraft using birds like pigeons, and then also owls. She would get talismans.
An owl.
Yes, an owl. Yeah, and then she would tie it on a pigeon.
Okay.
And then she would send this pigeon to go, let's say, to somebody's place of work. Then maybe these people are competing in a government office, and one of them is my grandmother's client, and she wants the position. So what they would do, the person that they want out of the way, they would send charm through the pigeon, and maybe let's say they have given that person 4 days to be fired from the job. Now, this pigeon will be flying there at the office, like for those 4 days. And every time it does that, something goes wrong. Either there is a loss.
It doesn't have to enter the building. It's just flying outside.
It flies outside the office or in the compound, So every time it does that, there's strange things that are happening, losses, maybe an important file goes missing, maybe this person is working on a project and somehow things just begin to work against the person that they are sending witchcraft for. So when that happens on the 4th day and the person gets fired, the pigeon goes back to my grandmother, and then it would take back the charm to show that it worked. If the pigeon does not go back, then my grandmother would know that the witchcraft did not work. Maybe this person is also consulting a higher power. So she would send a stronger charm. Yes. Yeah, so she would do things like that. Always normally when she wanted somebody to die, and she would give it a period of 3 months, because she doesn't want anybody pointing fingers at her. So what they do, they always want to pretend like they are good people. You know, those sorcerers, because they know nobody can stand their evil. If people find out that this person is killing our members, this person is a sorcerer, people will gather. So what happens is, the first time she sends the oil, the person begins to get sicknesses, but they are mild. Then the oil goes back again to follow up the matter. And when what happens, it goes at a certain time, and it gives a sound at that specific time, and it is consistent until the mission is accomplished. And whenever this victim hears the sound of that owl, it's like it's sending a spell of death. So the situation worsens, and the person does not realize. If Christians don't know spiritual things, then they are so lazy to pray. And to engage in spiritual warfare.
Jesus said men ought always to pray,
yes,
and not to faint.
Yeah, so we should not even faint. You see that old, don't faint. You just have to engage in spiritual warfare. So now she would do that. Then now when the person that is supposed to die is now in a critical condition, regardless of the hospital they have taken that person, they all will find itself there. And then normally they always wanted to work at the midnight hour. That's why around midnight, coming up to around 4 in the morning is when many patients die.